Hello folks, we have returned and it is Christmas Day, so Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate it. I hope you're all having a wonderful, wonderful time going through opening your presents. Hope you got lots of cool things from the missus or from the kids or from parents or from wherever you get your gifts from. I hope they came to you, and I hope that you have some hobby stuff to take you through to the new year, maybe even beyond. And if you are working over Christmas, then my heart goes out to you. Thank you very much for making sure we can all have some time off whilst you do the heavy lifting for us. And if you don't celebrate it, well, that's, fair enough. You've got hobby nightmares as per usual then. So, let's jump in, shall we? With our first hobby nightmare of the day, and it is from Jim. How you doing, Jim? He says, "Hi North, hope life is treating you well. My name is Jim. I love your channel, although I have been out of 40k as a hobby for decades now, apart from the occasional tear up with Kill Team. I especially enjoy the Hobby Nightmares videos and often find myself proper laughing at some of the outrageous antagonists in the featured Tales of Woe. However, I have a sinking feeling that I may actually be a hobby nightmare." Alright, I like these ones. "I'll start by spinning down the long ages to my days in the hobby where I vividly recall many times I have had to dodge spat dummies and toys hurled out of prams by opponents and all sorts. I want to tell you about this one guy who ended up crying and yelling at me screaming that I shouldn't be playing Warhammer as I have no sense of strategy and don't take the game seriously during a match. The occasion I allude to was around 32 to 33 years ago, and in a Games Workshop store, back in their halcyon days, where store managers were there to help you enjoy the hobby, as well as get you to buy stuff, as well as let you play in store. That kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, games in stores weren't that long ago, do you know what I mean? It was only a couple of years ago they stopped, so... but yeah, 32 to 33 years ago is the embryonic stage of 40k, and Warhammer Fantasy Battle, so yeah, long time ago. Now, I must be honest, I'm about as far away from a competitive player as you can get. I played orcs. I never took the game too seriously. For me, it was all about the boys whacking stuff for giggles and seeing who hits the hardest. What's the old orc adage? If it moves, thump it. If it don't move, thump it till it does. On this occasion, I ended up playing against a very intense and ghost-like Fields of the Nephilim fan, complete with long trench coat and massive boots. This wraith had manifested in the doorway and swept into the store with his Gucci carry case and immaculate eye makeup. He was a good-looking lad, just immeasurably pale and very blonde. He asked if anybody fancied a game of Warhammer 40,000, in a surprisingly sonorous register. I had my 40k orcs with me, and I'd been getting a verbal beasting from the store manager about my shocking use of dry brushing as a means of highlighting, after asking him for some painting tips. Dude, I used to do that. Guilty as charged. I unpacked my boys, and we set up the table, and all seemed to be going well. It was then that I saw his immaculate and beautifully painted pointy-eared ponces, the Eldar Harlequins. I felt a twinge of shame as my sack of nonsense orcs stood out like the proverbial bollocks on a bulldog. However, he didn't seem to mind and didn't pass comment on the sheer state my paint job was in. To be fair, they were up to basic gaming standard. Well, that's all you need, dude. You're in a Warhammer store. That's all you need. Anyway. From the get-go, I think I started to annoy my opponent as I crassly charged my boys mob up the field, making a beeline for his Harlequin dreadnought. As it decimated the mob piece by piece with withering fire, he kept shaking his head and looking puzzled when I kept running towards it. Eventually he erupted and asked why the hell I was out in the open and charging towards something that would annihilate me as such. I laughed and said because it makes an awesome clanging noise when you smash it with great big choppers. He looked even more annoyed and went from translucent to florid scarlet. I pushed on and eventually got within a few inches. I then decided to chuck a bunch of stick bombs at it. Again, he exploded, yelling, "Why are you doing that? You're going to hit yourself too." I replied, "Yeah, I know, but they go bang and they blow stuff up. It's cool." As I predicted, I caught a bunch of damage from the bangs, but managed to get a few wounds on his dreadnought. I had by now just an handful of boys left, and so needed to take the good old route test. I asked jokingly if I could get a bonus because of all the explosions and things blowing up, which orcs find exciting. He looked me dead in the eye with something close to disgust and said, "No." I made the roll, which meant I had 5 or 6 boys left who were about to go toe-to-toe with the Poncy Spindly Dreadnought. This is awesome stuff, and any lads that survive the scrap are definitely going to claim knob status. My other mobs were running up the field, happily brassing up the Eldar, mostly missing, but having enormous fun, clipping the odd pointy ear here and there. My opponent seemed to be getting annoyed that I wasn't getting upset as my boys were getting smashed to bits by gun and artillery fire. He even got more annoyed when, thanks to the then animosity rules, several of my boys' mobs started scrapping with each other, and I decided that they would give each other the good news with stick bombs. If you were an orc, wouldn't you find it funny to blow up the other mob gobbing off at you with your stick bombs? He started lawyering that I have to make a charge action and not a shoot type attack. As I recall, he successfully lawyered it, and so my boys ended up in a mass brawl in the middle of the battlefield, which was great fun. Well, for me at least. My opponent was getting more and more cross, and eventually he burst out crying. In frustration, I hope, and shouted I shouldn't be playing Warhammer as I have no respect for strategy and don't take the game seriously. Alright, here's where I stop it for a little while. Dude, you're playing orcs to a T. What does this guy expect? Do you know what I mean? You're literally playing orcs. A1. How are you supposed to play orcs? Like, this guy would love the hobby right now. Not Jim, I mean the guy's playing. This Eldar dude. He would love the hobby right now. Do you know why? Because it is very mil sim. It is very tactical. It is very, oh man, you got to get your orcs into cover. And they've got to, like, dive around cover like the, you know, on a James Bond movie. No. No. No, I'm just going to run them forward, thanks. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. You know. I bet this guy loves the hobby now if he's still around. I suddenly felt bad as I realised that this game wasn't really fun for him. So I called a halt and apologised if he wasn't enjoying the game, and tried explaining that for me, I enjoy the unpredictability of an orc army and always opt to play a more role-play style approach to my Warhammer games. It's for this reason I don't play in tournaments and just play casually. I suggested that we take a quick fag break, and I'd buy him a brew at the cafe over the road. He declined and said he wanted to carry on playing. I asked him if he was sure, and he mutely nodded. Okay, I think you've shamed him into carrying on here. By being nice, you've killed him with kindness. I still felt bad that this chap had gotten upset and mentally gave myself a kicking for not seeing that not everybody has my sense of humour. So I said, why don't we carry on playing and you suggest some good tactics I can use for future games so that on the day I can actually stand a chance in a tournament maybe. In my mind, a game is just a game, and I couldn't give much of a monkeys if I won or lost. I just loved chucking dice and the mayhem that came with playing as orcs. But a game needs to be fun for all players. We played the rest of the match with my opponent providing advice around some really good plays, but shamefully totally un-orky. He cheered up, and of course he won, even after my diabolical genius of a plan of calling my then girlfriend and getting her to pop into the store. She is blessed with an eye-wateringly pleasing cleavage, which I was hoping to use as a distraction. I was, and I'm very lucky she is now my wife and mother of my 2 beautiful daughters. Yeah, dude, those breasts are going to come back on you big time. Remember, you've got daughters. Just saying. That's gonna come back to bite you. That is going to come back to bite you. Just saying. She definitely wasn't into the hobby. And she was normal and had a proper grown-up job, but allowed me to play with my toy soldiers whenever I wanted to. She always said she'd rather I spend my time geeking out than snorting stuff and getting into fights like I used to before she came into my life and basically saved it. God, I love that girl. Talk about absolute living proof of life imitating art. The trusty orc mentality worked out. If it's bright and shiny, nick it. You can always work out what it does later on. Although 30 plus years in, I still have no idea how she works or why she sticks with me, but I'll not complain. Anyway, turns out this guy was gay, and so my plan was doomed from the start. Cutting a long story short, after we finished, we shook hands. To my surprise, my hand didn't pass through his. And we agreed to meet next week, where we'd play a game, but this time we play Orc style, and I'd show him how the Greenskins do things, which we did. We even agreed on some custom rules, like Orcs can shoot into ruins in hand-to-hand combat. Orcs can shoot into units in hand-to-hand combat with a 3 in 6 chance of hitting their mate involved in the fight. It's perfectly acceptable to lob stick bombs at the gobby or the. Sorry, this has all gone haywire. At the gobby or the mob of orcs. And the sole survivor of the initial battle, who happened to be a Gretchen, who was allowed to become a war boss, I suspect that Ghost secretly enjoyed it too. I'm pleased to say that Ghost and I became best mates, and are still best mates today. He is still very serious and competitive, and throws the occasional epi when it comes to games. In fact, he still plays in tournaments and does very well. By the way, Ghost is my nickname for him, which he hates, but then again, he shouldn't mince about looking like one. Don't worry, North mate, he has given me permission to use it here, and knows I love him to pieces, even though he still goths up at the tragic age of 50. I have long since moved on from Warhammer, and now just play board games. We still meet up, and he always enjoys a good board game. I even convinced my wife to play in a couple. We often meet up with Chris, Ghost, and his husband, and we have some great stories to tell that have unfolded across a board. If I'm being honest, I'm not sure what I wanted to achieve with recounting the story. Maybe just to emphasise the point that 40k and any other game are just that, games. They should be used as a means of escape and relaxation, with all parties involved having a responsibility to ensure that everybody can enjoy the game, whichever way they need to play to enjoy it. But open conversation and compromise are kind of critical. Yeah, that's a good point. That there was a part in this Hobby Nightmare where I was kind of sure that this was going to be the atypical Hobby Nightmare where, Ghost gets right up your nose and you end up just parting ways and never playing him again and kind of, bitching about him over a Hobby Nightmare. But I'm glad to see that you guys had some compromise and you were able to actually get a friendship out of this. This is cool. I like this. You were definitely the bigger man here. I will say that. But, yeah, well done. This was good. At the time of our meeting, Ghost was struggling with his identity, figuring out who he was and how he fitted into the world. As we all did when we were teenagers and young adults, I suppose. He had the added ball ache of struggling with his sexuality, which, thanks to the then environment of the 90s, caused him some real mental health issues. At that time, I was in a good place mentally, and blessed with a good measure of empathy, and so was able to realise that there was stuff behind his high stringiness. I think I've just invented a word there, but anyway. I had been through some mental health issues myself, but for me, I took the coward's way out and killed my anxiety and self-doubt with illicit substances and brawling and doing a good job of getting myself killed. But I got lucky and met my wife early, and she put me right. Chris had to fight his own battles on his own up until then. He was and still is the bravest person I've ever met in that regard. Thankfully, Ghost, Chris, and I were able to share an experience that ended up forging a lifelong friendship, thanks to the hobby and being allowed to indulge in a safe space and supportive environment. Such were the Games Workshop stores back in the day. Yeah, but the thing is, dude, they just were that. They weren't enforced that. Do you know what I mean? The Games Workshop store and general hobby store back in the day, by and large, it was a safe space for you to be yourself because it was for nerds. And we didn't have to say, hey guys, this is a safe space. No, it just was. It just was. That's simple, right? It literally just was that. It was a safe space for people to get together and have fun. It didn't need to be plastered all over the walls. We didn't need pride flags on the ceiling. We didn't need any of that stuff. You were welcome at the store. You didn't need the whole world acquiescing to you and bending over backwards to accommodate you. Do you know what I mean? Which is kind of not right, at least to me. Anyway. Thanks, North. Hope you find the story good enough to put on one of your future episodes. And thanks, Chris, my favourite ghost, for letting me share our story. Love you long time, Mandingo. Kind regards, Jim. No worries, man. And yeah, and you made it onto the Christmas Day episode, so well done to you. Alright. This next one is from Caius. He says, "Hello, North and fellow drinkers here at the Exile Public House. You may call me by my name, which is Caius, but said like a Canadian, Caius. Alright? From my best guess, it looks like I've been watching your content for several years, at least 4, maybe 5. We've been going that long? My God. My God. I'd like to thank you for that, as you've helped me through some of the most craziest times in my life, and your videos have always been a highlight in the tough days. I appreciate how you see this not only as a hobby channel, but also as a men's mental health channel. Because when the going gets tough, I can always rely on a good uplifting story from my old pal North. Not all of them are uplifting, but I get what you mean. Yeah, not all of them are like sunshine and rainbows, but I get what you mean, so thank you. I'd like to start by just remarking on how strange parasocial relationships actually are. Because I really do vibe with you, but on your end, you don't even know me from Adam. You and I have had beers, and you don't even know about it. My favourite beers come across the pond, and are London Pride and a beer called Brains from Wales. I know you're a Newcastle man, which is an excellent choice too. Yeah, Gamma Ray is also good. Beavertown Brewery is a good one. So Gamma Ray is good. Yeah, Neck Oil is good. I like Neck Oil. Anyway. Yeah, you are right though. I feel bad sometimes because, especially over the last few weeks, because I've been very ill. Like I went to the doctor's today, which is the 23rd, but even though you're watching this on the 25th. I went to the doctor's today and he essentially diagnosed me with having E. coli or something similar, bacterial poisoning, essentially, of the gut, which I've gotten from a restaurant in town, I think. And that's basically made sure that I am very, very, very ill over the past couple of weeks. And so when I get emails saying, "Hey North, you do all this for me, and and I really love to have a chat once in a while," dude, there's some days I just don't have the energy, and I feel really bad. Like, I just don't really have the energy, even when I'm not ill. Sometimes you get in from work, or you just finish your emails, or you finish your networking, and you sit back and you cook dinner, and then you come onto your computer, and all you want to do is play Rogue Trader or something. You don't want to get into the weeds of talking to people extensively online, but it sucks, but it's part of the job, I guess. It's part of the as in the feeling of feeling guilty sucks, right? You emailing me doesn't suck. That's awesome. But anyway, moving on. Now, fortunately for me, I don't really have too many hobby nightmares from my time in the hobby. A few salty players here and there, a few times where I've been the salty one. Most of the stuff was from when I was a teen, so I'm happy to say that these days I just play for fun and for the love of the hobby and Warhammer, which ironically is why I don't play Warhammer at all, just one-page rules. The closest I've been to a real hobby nightmare hasn't had anything to do with the hobby at all, but my life surrounding the hobby. My life has changed quite a lot in the last 5 years. I became a proud father to my oldest boy in 2022, congratulations, and just recently again in September of this year to a beautiful little girl. It has been an incredible experience, and I'm grateful for all I have. I'm very fortunate that it all worked out the way that it did. Their mother, my beautiful fiancée, and I had only been going out for about 6 months before we found out she was pregnant, and needless to say, we were absolutely scared shitless. By some miracle, we pulled it together and have made it work well with me working and her at home with the kids. We're very happy, and it's not lost on me how lucky I am that this has all worked out well so far. We're both pretty young in the grand scheme of things, and I know how easily it can blow up in your face. Well, dude, you got a really good outlook there. That's good. Well done to you. This all brings me to the point of why I'm writing to you today. I was really touched by your video the other day with Sarah and her boyfriend John, who had gone through some really terrible things with his ex-girlfriend. I also appreciated how you opened up to us about your life and struggles some fathers can have this day and age. This brings me to wanting to share with you, and any other dads out there, a great Facebook community called Dadhammer Support Network. I know you value having spaces for men, and particularly fathers in this case, to get help and support they need when you're having a hard time, and Dad Hammer Support Network has been that place for me. It's not like other Facebook groups with drama and bullshit. It's been about good vibes, good advice, and good support for those of us who need it. I know I certainly have needed the input and advice, as I've had a lot of growing up to do in these last few years. I've never really heard you do a shout out like this before, so I hope it's okay. Yeah, it's more than okay. It's more than okay. Let me have a little look on my Facebook here. I'm not going to show it on screen, obviously. Dad Hammer Support Network. Ah, it's got 12,000 members. That's cool. That's cool. Do you know what? I'm gonna throw this in the detail section down below, so you guys can go and find this. I'm gonna read the synopsis here. All right. Dad Group first, Warhammer Group second. This is a group for wargaming dads who aim to, with an aim to be a place where you can express and talk about anything to do with being a dad, whether it's simple questions about what to feed a baby or mental health struggles, and you just need some people to talk to. This is a place where you won't be judged and raised back up on your feet, moving forwards as a dad. All right, all right. We as a group stand in support of the LGBTQ+ community for minorities to have their voices heard and take a stand against any form of domestic violence and abuse. We also support a woman's right to her own body. Okay, fair enough. I guess you have to say that to make sure that... It's a shame that you have to say that. Here's the thing, guys, right? Do you know what? Right, if this is a woman support network, do you think that they have to have a paragraph at the end of their description saying they also support men's mental health? Just saying. I don't think they do. On your group, lads, I'd remove that paragraph. Fuck that, right? You can support all that shit without throwing up front and centre. Like, you know, they wouldn't do it for you, man. I'm telling you now. Part A1 of mental health is like cutting away the guilt that isn't yours, dude. That's not your guilt, okay? If people come into your group and start acting like assholes, then gatekeep them and kick them out, right? But if there's a woman support network like this, they don't have a paragraph like this where they say, "Oh, we support male mental health." And shit. No, they don't need to. So, but yeah, I think that's there because you feel like you need to. So I wouldn't do that. But this does seem like a really cool group. Does seem like an awesome group. So that's fine. That's all good. Anyway, moving on with the rest of the Hobby Nightmare. Again, it's called Dad Hammer Support Network. You'll know it if you look it up. It's got the salamander holding a kid artwork. Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I like it. Again, thank you for all you do, North. More than anything, I thought I'd write in about the Dad Hammer group and just to say hi to you. I've been a long-time listener, so it only felt right. Next time I might share how I've attempted to keep hobbying gaming, even with two little ones, taking up a good chunk of my time. You've inspired me to try my hand at writing lore, so maybe one day soon I'll send you the lore I've been working on for my own custom Imperial Guard regiment. The Ardranian Iron Lion Guard. Cool, that sounds cool. Attached is a picture of the Lion Guard valiantly charging into Chaos Knights, though ultimately it was to their doom. Yours, Caius. Cheers, man. Let's have a little look here, shall we? At this nice piece of photography. But yeah, again, I like the idea of that group. So definitely go and join it if you are struggling. They seem like a good bunch of lads. Alright. I just... Lovely army, by the way. That's just my issue with it. Right? My issue with it isn't that you support, you know, LGBTQ stuff. It isn't that you are against domestic violence. Dude, all that stuff is a given. Right? You know what I mean? It strikes me as being there under duress. Whenever I see this kind of thing, I'm like, I know that's what you feel, dude, because normal people feel this way, right? You don't need to go onto a Facebook group and say, by the way, I'm breathing oxygen today, you know? Yeah, I know. Because you're normal, right? You know, the default is that we're against domestic abuse, right? That's the default. So why do you need to put that in your bio? Just don't. Like, that's weird. Don't put that there, you know? And again, they would never do it for you. Like women's help groups, LGBTQ help groups, they don't say, hey, we need to look after the dads here. Right? We actually support the dads. No. Right? It just strikes me as odd and doesn't need to be there, in my opinion. But I respect your convictions, and I think you're right to have them. But at the end of the day, you know, I don't know. Moving on. Darius says, "Hi there, Sir North. It's Darius again. You may recall my tale about a Skaven role-playing game player who had a bit of a wobble and almost tanked my Warhammer campaign. Well, here is another story from a long time ago, in the innocent days of my youth. My youth? My youth. I had a friend when I was a teenager of 14 or 15 in the mid-80s. Let's call him Fred. I don't remember how or when I met Fred, but he was about 6 months older than me and was, even by my standards, a bit nerdy. At this age, I was big into military modelling and spent much of my hobby time building and painting World War II kits, mostly American and German European theatre, in 1/35th scale mostly. It had created a crude rule set to allow me to conduct small rule games with these kits, based on a D10 system for movement, accuracy, and various ranges, damage, and armour defence rolls. Dude, you had a career as a game designer in you there. You really did. Anyway, Fred was a railway modeller and lived above an off-licence. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, in the States, an off-licence is pretty much a grocery store. I don't know why it's called an off-licence. If any of you guys know, comment section, please. Why is it called an off-licence? Anyway. Fred was a railway modeller and lived above an off-licence, which was his dad's business. Fred's bedroom was in a box room, which was above the cash desk area of the shop. You could hear the register ping and the rattling of change every time his dad made a sale. Fred had a big flat piece of 8x4 clipboard that was really heavy, for a kid anyway. It must have been an inch thick, leant up against the wall, which held his model railway. He'd lay this flat on the bedroom floor when he was running trains and would occasionally invite me over. On one day in the summer holidays, we'd gotten talking about modelling in general, and I told him about my models and the wargame rules I'd just made up. Fred said he'd like to try a game, so I invited him to my house to give it a go. I can't remember the reason why, but I ended up carting my model collection over to his place, and we set up a battlefield on his bedroom floor, using boxes and Tupperware with a brown blanket over the top to create hills and valleys. It was great fun, and time flew by before we knew it. The sun had gone down, and I knew I'd be for it if I didn't get home soon, so we agreed to leave the models in the terrain, all as they were, and pick up the next morning. I can remember getting to Fred's place the next day. To get to the flat, I had to go through the gate in the back, past the bins, and up a rusty old staircase. I got to the back door and knocked. There was no answer. Weird, I thought. Fred hadn't said that he wouldn't be home. I knocked again, and called through the letterbox. Still no answer, but I saw a shadow moving against the wall in the hallway. I went downstairs to the shop and spoke to Fred's dad, who used the shop phone and called upstairs. "Fred," he said, sounding quite angry, "open the door, your friend is here." There was a muffled response, and I went back to the top of the stairs. A few minutes later, Fred came to the door. "I'm really sorry," he said. He seemed really upset and dejected. I followed him through to his bedroom, not sure I understood why he was so down. And then I saw a box at the end of the bed. The blanket battlefield was gone. I looked in the box and my heart sank. It was full of busted tanks, jeeps and figurines. Parts and broken parts of models made a horrible rattling sound as I rifled through it. I think I might have cried a little bit. Fred explained that he'd been really careful about not stepping on the battlefield, but had gotten up in the night, managed to somehow get his foot caught in the corner of the blanket, and had grabbed something to stop falling over. What he'd grabbed was his model railway board, which was just leant against the wall. This had come down flat onto the floor, crushing pretty much everything underneath it. He'd spent the small hours of the morning both explaining to his parents what the noise was and trying to pick up small plastic bits out of one of his mum's blankets. That box of plastic went straight in the bin at the bottom of Fred's back stairs. Most of it was beyond redemption. And anyway, I couldn't face trying to separate out all the bits and gluing it all back together. Explaining to my dad, who had bought most of the models for me, what had happened was not a fun experience. I didn't stay friends with Fred for much longer after that, and I seem to remember that his dad sold up and they moved away some time later. This also marked the end of my military modelling phase. A local hobby shop in the next town over started carrying lead white metal fantasy miniatures, and I was intrigued, so I bought a few with my pocket money. I think they were 99p each or something silly, and started slapping paint on them as soon as I got home. Yep, I ruined them, but it started me on a hobby journey that has lasted almost 40 years. Thanks for all you do, dude. You're smashing it. Pun intended. Darius, cheers, man. That's... So we've gone from having a friendship out of nowhere to having a friendship end, which is like... which sucks, but I can definitely see why it kind of ended. I kind of feel sorry for the lad, do you know what I mean? Because obviously it was an honest mistake. He didn't mean to do that. He was having a load of fun with your models. He didn't mean to smash them all. But yeah, like if my young lad came back and told me what had happened there, I'd probably take him straight to the hobby store, dude, and be like, I'll get you a few more models, you know what I mean? If it's not his fault that the models got smashed to bits, I would I wouldn't replace all of them at once, but I'd get him a few, you know, bits and bobs just to set him on the course again, you know? If it was me. I don't know. I don't know how your dad handled it, but that's what I would have done. Anyway, I love you a long time. Have a wonderful, wonderful Merry Christmas. There'll be no video tomorrow, but there will be one on Friday. So I'll speak to you then. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.